I'm Jane from Poppy Patchwork, and today I'm going to show you how I made this mask. Now, I know there's loads and loads of videos on YouTube about making masks, and I've watched a lot of them, and I've made quite a few masks, but none that I think fit my particular face. And all our faces are different, and so I've tweaked the patterns that I've come across, and I've taken tips from other makers of masks, and I've come up with this design. I wear glasses, so my mask has to not fog up my glasses, and so this design, although not totally foolproof, I find doesn't fog up my glasses, and I don't have to put any metal strips in up here. I also found that with some face masks, the fabric, it comes too close to the eyes up here, so I've got a bigger dip underneath the eyes. Some patterns make really good use of tucking the fabric along the side like this, and I'm going to show you a really good way that I picked up on the internet how to do that. And I've come up with my own pattern which you can download from my website. So let me show you how I made this face mask. So what you're going to need is the pattern. Now this is my pattern, and you can download it from my website, Poppy Patchwork. I'll put the link in the description below. You're also going to need some fabric. So I've gone into my stash and I've found some remnants of fabric that I can use for this. You're going to need one fabric for the front and one fabric for the back. Now, because my pieces of fabric aren't quite big enough, I've had to find two pieces the same. So if you've got one piece of fabric that you fold in half, like so, and the pattern is going to fit on your half fabric, then that's great. But my fabric's not big enough, so I'm going to have to cut the pattern out of two pieces of fabric that are right sides together. And it's really important that if you're going to use two pieces of fabric, you fold them right sides together, and then you place the pattern on top like so. I made the mistake of not placing the two pieces of fabric right sides together, and your pattern just won't work that way. If you are using one piece of fabric, you just fold it in half right sides together. Two pieces of fabric you place together right sides together, pin, and then cut out around the pattern shape like so, and repeat with the fabric for the back of the mask. So now, before separating the fabrics, you need to take these over to the sewing machine and sew right sides together along the curve. So that's along the curve along here and along here. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and sew those together. So I've taken the fabric over to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew along the curve. I've put my normal foot onto the sewing machine, and I'm just going to line the edge of the foot up against the fabric as I sew round. And now I'm going to repeat with the front fabric. So after I've sewn the seam, before I press it open, I'm just going to set the seam by pressing over the stitching. Now I have this dressmaker's ham, which I find is really useful for pressing those seams open on such a tight curve. So the dressmaker's ham has this curve and it's really very tightly stuffed, and what you can do is you can place your fabric across the seam on the curve like that, and this helps you to press the seams open. So I'm holding the ham up and I'm just pressing across the seam, and the fact that it's curved allows me to kind of press that curve much easier. Just going to slide it over a little bit more to finish off pressing the curve here. It's quite a tight curve, as I've said before, so it is a little bit tricky. Just going to turn that round and come at it from a different angle. So once I've done that, you should be able to see that I have pressed the seam open. So I'm going to repeat that with the other front piece of the mask. So having pressed the seams open, we just want to turn it the right way, but with the wrong side up and the open seams visible, you want to take that to the sewing machine. You want to place that centre line on the stitched line that you've already sewn, and then you want to swing your needle to the right hand side on the Bernina. I just click it twice and it moves the needle just slightly to one side, and I'm going to sew down both sides of this seam just to reinforce the seam. I don't start at the very edge of the fabric, I start a little way in, and then I'm going to reverse back and then come on down. So hopefully you'll get to see this on the video. So as I'm sewing, I take it quite slowly and I'm keeping that centre point of the foot on the seam as I come down. I do have to stop every now and then and just gently kind of massage and move the fabric around. So I take this bit quite slowly because I don't really want to get any rucks or tucks in the fabric, if I can help it. Now I'm coming to the end again here, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a reverse at the end here and then cut the threads. Now I'm going to go back up and come down the other side. So again I'm going to start a little way down and get sewing and then reverse. Find it really helps with feeding the fabric through and doesn't bunch it up. Just be careful of your fingers as you're massaging the fabric through. I find that when you come down the second side it's a little bit easier because you've already done some work and it's flattened the fabric out a bit. I'm coming to the end now, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a reverse and then come off and stop it and cut the threads. So we're going to repeat the process with the inner fabric. This top stitching is really useful because it just reinforces the seam, so when you're washing it continually you're going to keep your face mask intact. So I'm at the ironing board. I'm just going to give these a nice press. I find the easiest way is just to keep them in half like this to give them a press. Now what you need to do is take them and place them right sides together. So you need to match the seams here that go over the nose, and you're going to match the seams at the sides. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the elastic in so that there's elastic here at each corner. Don't know if you can see that. We're going to put elastic so that it comes around like this, and again on the other side. So we need to cut elastic that is about 6 inches long, 2 pieces of elastic, one for each ear. So let me go and grab the elastic and I'll show you what we need to do. So I've now cut my elastic. I've cut mine to 12 inches, 6 inches, cut it into 12 and then cut it in half. So each of these pieces of elastic is 6 inches long. I find that works for me. You might need to adjust the measurement for you. So with my right sides together, I'm just going to pop the elastic in here at an angle into the corner there. Don't know if we can see that. So it's at an angle into the corner there, and then I'm going to put the other fabric over the top of it, and I use a wonder clip just to hold that in place, and then the other end of it goes on the other side just in the same way. And I'm just going to place a wonder clip on that. I'm going to repeat on the other side. I have a very squeaky ironing board. I don't know if you can hear that. Every time I lean on it, it has a bit of a squeak. Go find the other end of the elastic, and I'm going to pop that in here. I do find I'm all fingers and thumbs when I'm making this. A little bit tricky. And then I'm just going to grab 2 pins, and we're going to just pin those center seams together, keeping everything in place. Now when I go back over to the sewing machine, I'm going to be sewing all round the edges of the face mask, so I'm going to have to leave a gap to turn it through. So I like to leave my gap along the bottom of the face mask here. So I'm going to start sewing about here, do a little bit of a back stitch here, go all the way around, and then finish off leaving a gap with a little bit of a back stitch here. And it is also important to back stitch your corners where your elastic is, because that's where the most pressure is put on the mask as you're taking it on and off, and you don't want the elastic to pop out. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and show you how I do that. So this is the bottom edge. I'm not going to return the needle to the center point of the sewing machine. I'm going to keep it that distance to one side, and that is going to create around about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance along here. And I will be top stitching the whole mask as well, just to reinforce the stitching. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to take a little bit of a back stitch. Now I'm coming to the first corner, which has got the elastic in. I'm going to just take it off the one, take the one to clip out, and make sure that the elastic's in the right place, and hold it in place with my finger as I approach the corner. And then when I do so, when I get to this, over the elastic, I'm going to just do another back stitch. So now I'm just going to back stitch and then come back and then stop with the needle down and pivot to turn the corner. And again, because I've still got some elastic here, I'm going to do a back stitch as I leave the corner. So I'm coming back to the next corner, and again I will do that back stitching. So I'm coming along the top of the mask now, and there is that it comes along, and then there's that sharp turn which I need to make sure that I keep sharp as I come along the top of the face mask, and then I will repeat the back stitching at the elastic on the other end. So I'm coming up to this sharp turn, so I'm going to sew up to it, stop, raise my foot a little bit to pivot round, and then continue sewing. I'm coming back down to that sharp turn, so again stop, lift the foot, pivot slightly, and then continue sewing. Just checking here that the elastic isn't going to get sewn by the sewing machine, just putting it there at a slight angle to move it out of the way. Now I'm coming back to where I started, so I'm just going to do a back stitch across the elastic, and I'm going to do a back stitch before I finish at the opening. And now I'll cut those threads. So before I turn it through, I'm just going to cut the corners to ease those corners. So cutting the corners where that elastic was, or is. And now I'm going to turn it through and then give it a good press. So I've come back over to the ironing board, I've turned it through, and now I need to press it. So that's the face mask nearly complete. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to top stitch all the way round the face mask. Let's open it out. We're going to top stitch all the way around this face mask. That will seal the opening. And also we're going to put some tucks in along the side here by the ears. So in order to find out where those tucks are going to go, I'm going to fold the face mask first of all in half along the bridge of the nose, and then along the ears, just this short side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half just to work out where that halfway point was, and I'm going to put a pin there to mark that. That's where one of the tucks is going to take place. Then I'm going to bring the edge up to the pin to mark another pin tuck, and I'm going to repeat on the other side. So on this side of the face mask, I've got 3 pins which are evenly spaced, and that is going to be where the pin tucks are going to take place, and we have to replicate that on the other side. So again, I'm going to mark this where I have those pins by lining the sides up in the same place. Just going to mark where those pins are. So that's 1, that's 2, and that's the 3rd one. So as I'm going to go round doing the top stitching, I will also sew the tucks into place. And the way in which I'm going to do this is a technique that I've seen in one of the videos. I can't remember the name of the person, but I will link it below in my description. So thank you very much, and I'll show you how to do this. It was much easier than anything else I've seen in the videos on YouTube. So to start sewing the top stitching all the way around, I like to start along the bottom of the mask. And if you remember, we were sewing with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to line the foot of the sewing machine up against the bottom edge of the mask, and I'm going to swing the needle as far to the right as I can, so it is as close to the edge of the face mask as I can, just to do the bit of top stitching. So I'm going to start sewing with a small back stitch over to the end edge of the face mask pivot, and then I'm going to show you this really great technique to make the pin tucks. So I've just looked up who it was on YouTube that showed me this technique, and it's Melanie Ham. So thank you, Melanie. I'm really enjoying this way of making pin tucks. So you can see the pin is marking the position where I want to do the tuck. Now we're coming up the side of the face mask from the bottom to the top, and so the pin tuck needs to go downwards. So I'm going to lift my foot up so I've got a little bit of manoeuvring space, and I'm going to pull the pin out, and where the pin has come out, I'm then going to place I call it a quick unpicker or a seam ripper, and I'm going to place it over that point where the pin has come out, and I'm just going to twist the fabric down using the quick unpick to kind of pull that fabric down and create a little bit of a tuck there. And I'm going to then lower my foot pedal down and sew across there. And then I'm going to stop, raise my foot up again, and once again repeat, placing that stitch ripper in there, twisting the fabric round or down, putting the foot pedal back down and sewing again. Once I've caught all that fabric, I stop, lift the pedal up again, or the foot up again, and once again with the pin tuck move the fabric down towards the bottom of the face mask. Again, stitch over that tuck, and we're just going to come up to the top of the face mask now, and we're just going to pivot round. The other thing you want to do, check as you're doing the top stitching, is that the wrong side of the face mask is tucked away and you don't have that showing, or at least not too much of it showing. So I'm now sewing along the top part of the mask, which goes over the nose, so you just need to kind of smooth it out as you're coming along. And again, remember you've got that sharp corner to turn. Now we're coming over the bridge of the nose. At this point we've got 4 layers of fabric plus their seams, and so that's why I keep my walking foot down on my sewing machine when I'm making masks. I find it just helps go through all the layers of fabric. So if you do have a walking foot, you might find it useful to put it on. So now we're coming to the other side of the face mask. So once we've turned that corner, I can show you the stitch ripper trick again. Let's just pivot round. Now this time we want to be turning the fabric towards us, not away from us. So I'm going to go a little bit closer to the pin. Now lift the foot out of the way, remove that pin, and then with the stitch ripper we're going to be twisting the fabric this time towards us. So once that has been sewn over, I stop and I raise the foot up again, remove the pin, pop the stitch ripper in, and again we're going to be twisting it towards us this time, and sew over that tuck. Once that's secure, we stop it, raise the pedal up again, the foot pedal up again, and for the final time place the stitch ripper in, twist the fabric towards us this time, and secure that with your stitching. We are now going to be stitching along the bottom of the face mask, and you are going to come back to where you started. So when we get back to where we started, I'm going to do a little small back stitch just to secure the threads. And then cut the threads. So I'm just going to trim all those threads away, give it another press, and then I'll model the face mask for you. So this is the mask that I've designed that fits my face and I think is comfortable for me. I've got quite a big dip here because I don't like the fabric touching my eyes, but it's quite tight across the nose, so I don't need to put any metal in there. If I just twist my head round, you can see the pin tucks on the side. And there's quite a lot of space here which helps you breathe when you're wearing the mask. So for me, this is the mask that I find is really good. I have tweaked and designed my own face mask, and the pattern can be found on my website, Poppy Patchwork. I'll put the link in below. I hope you've enjoyed this face mask video, and keep safe. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.